AI or machine learning was not a revelation by itself. Oh, there's this new thing. Generative AI, of course, changed the picture.
You have to manage that risk, how fast you deploy a new technology versus the impact that it might have.
Yeah.
How do you manage that risk?
It doesn't have to be Gen AI, it applies to many other areas. What kind of data you are sharing, either customer data or your own data. CTO, in my opinion, is a position that you have to deserve training and failing and learning. And if you are not well-rounded, like you said, it's going to be very difficult to contribute.
Ali Dasdan has worked with amazing teams in multiple industries, startups to big companies, both US and UK. He is the Chief Technical Officer at ZoomInfo, the go-to-market intelligence platform.
There's a lot of pressure and stress.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Even if you look at, let's say, hiring process, right? There are lots of interesting things you can do. What does interviewing mean? Why you are asking certain questions, right?
What technological trends are you most excited about?
Gen AI is providing, it's already solving lots of problems, and I will definitely see more and more applications being written on that.
And you may not need to hire somebody for XYZ purpose if it can be done by AI. Hello, welcome to the Priyanka Shinde Podcast, where we dive into the art and science of strategy, execution, and leadership. I'm your host, Priyanka Shinde, author of The Art of Strategic Execution and a consultant for tech leaders. In this podcast, I bring you candid conversations with top executives, startup founders, and industry experts who are driving innovation, delivering results, and staying ahead in today's competitive landscape. We will break down what it takes to tap into founder mode and turn vision into action. If you are serious about elevating your leadership and execution skills, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube. It helps the podcast and ensures you never miss an episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Priyanka Shinde Podcast. I'm really excited for today's guest, Ali Dasdan. Ali is the EVP and CTO and leads the global engineering team at ZoomInfo, the go-to market platform that helps businesses find, acquire, and grow customers. Ali brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in scaling global technology companies, having spent nearly 4 years at Atlassian, leading engineering for the work management products, including Confluence, Trello, and Jira Work Management. Prior to that, Ali spent 2 decades at multiple global technology companies in a diverse set of industries, scaling and leading engineering, data science, technical operations, and product management. Ali also served as a CTO in 3 startups and as a head of engineering in the UK. His extensive experience comes with a record of research publications and patents in big systems, big data, and big science. Ali holds a PhD in computer science from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Ali lives in the Bay Area in California and someone that I admire greatly, having worked with him many years ago. Welcome to the show, Ali.
Thank you, Priyanka. Thanks for having me.
I would love to learn a little bit more about your current role and how you spend your days.
Yeah, as you said, yeah, I'm the CTO. It's a very busy job. The company is a very efficient company. Lots of work. We like to move fast. As a CTO, you have to be on top of almost everything. There are people sides of things and product sides of things and operations and process and platform and executive definitely roles, strategy of the company, planning and budgeting and all that. So it's a balance across all of these. So that's how I spend my time.
I'm definitely want to dive more into that. And there has been such a vast experience that you have had,
Thank you.
like I mentioned, in a very diverse set of industries. Over the years, has there been like a pivotal moment or decision that really shaped your career?
I think two things. One is definitely coming to US. I'm originally from Turkey. I came to US for PhD, so that was a pivotal decision. Um, uh, and the next one was, across my career, definitely lots of mentors, right? Lots of uh, guidance and recommendations and suggestions along the way. But one thing I distinctly remember was that I was doing my first internship in a company, and I was still a PhD student. And I was in the mood of writing more papers, spending graduate student life. And he asked me a question, which his point was, what are you trying to perfect? Right. So, what's your goal for with this PhD? And then I realized I couldn't answer him properly. I just answered similarly. So his recommendation was, almost similar to what many people are saying now in the Valley is, perfect is the enemy of the good. He said basically, you have done enough. Talk to your advisor, finalize the goal, um, and based on that one, just say put yourself onto a schedule and just deliver your PhD thesis and move on. Right. So there's no need to perfect. If you want to do more things, you can do after that. So even though it was something simple, it basically triggered and put things in a form that actually I time bounded my PhD in a way with the deliverables that I had to deliver, which also, again, a simple decision, but two things that came out of that one is, as I mentioned, the perfect is the enemy of the good, because iterative improvement is what matters. And the second thing is, once you clarify a target, um, and it makes it easier to find a path to it, and then you just execute that path along the way. Definitely some bumps here and there and learnings and all that. So yeah, that was also, I don't think he knows that, but he actually influenced me greatly. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Maybe he'll listen to this and
Yeah.
remember it as well. Um, you mentioned a very important point. This whole notion of perfect is the enemy of good, or even this whole 80-20 rule that we talk about. And I
Yeah.
feel that it is especially very relevant to uh, applied science or applied research, something that we used to work together on. And even with
Yeah.
this whole AI development now that's happening, algorithms, you can continue to perfect them. And so like
Mhm.
where do you stop and where do you productize? And I feel like you're leading into that. And so I
Yeah.
just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think one thing is to realize that it's maybe just modesty, right? Because sometimes what you think perfect is, you know, basically it defines on a definition, right? Here are the requirements, or here's the definition of what perfect means. But I think the modesty part of that one is to realize that um, your set of requirements or definition is incomplete, most probably, because you are still lacking data. There are some unknowns. So as a result, basically, it's not perfect actually. To be honest, like, yeah, yes, in certain situations it might be. So once you realize that, you realize basically what matters is how fast, right, I move towards a better state, right, and better and better and better state, in a way, of course, will ideally, hopefully, will approach what you call perfect. But if you think that you were doing perfect before without realizing that actually your definition of perfect is may not be even be perfect, you were probably chasing the wrong target. So I think that realization is important, and that's why you just have that modesty, saying that probably there are things that I do not know here. What makes sense is, again, I make progress towards a goal, and along the way I learn, I adjust, I improve things and all that, and that is the far better approach for problem solving.
Yeah. I like that. It also applies to any kind of decisions. Doesn't have to be. I talked about
Yep.
AI, but doesn't have to be. And you may not know everything to make the perfect decision. So you make the decision based on the data you have today, and then move on. So I
Exactly.
I think
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure you deal with that as a CTO as well every
All
day.
the
Is
time.
you have to make so many different decisions at your level. So can you share a little bit more about, especially when it comes to balancing the act of being a technical leader as well as a business leader?
Yeah. I think one thing is, I sometimes use this 6P framework that I've come up with, and it says, the people. It says productivity, passion, which I use it for culture. Then there's platform, products, and process. Okay, 6Ps. If you deep dive into, let's say, people side, let's say how you lead your team, how you do succession planning and interviews and onboarding and promotions and performance management and etc. etc. There are lots of details within each of these P titles. Um, so I think as a CTO, sometimes if you are growing as an engineering leader, and let's say you're a good manager, senior manager, director, I think sometimes I have seen that engineering leaders do not realize, they think that it's just a natural progression and they can just be a CTO. Being a CTO means you have to know across all these dimensions that I have just mentioned. So it's not like you're just going to be a technical person and then somehow somebody else is going to handle that. So as a CTO, you have to deal with that, and you have to have knowledge and expertise, quick decision making, like we discussed. How do you problem solve across all of these? So that balance is across all of that. So it's not technical versus just the people management.
Right.
So sometimes you need, again, platform issues. Sometimes you have to come back and let's say you deal with a very difficult incident, right? Sometimes your guidance is needed, or communication, or encouragement, or all this. So you have to be on top of all of these as a CTO. It's a multi-dimensional job as a result of that, um, and you have to know enough from each one of these areas. Of course, it helps a lot if you have done these things before. I mean, let's say the simplest thing is interview process. I have designed this so many times in so many different companies that it comes as second nature when I go to another company, and of course you adapt to that company's requirements. But if you say that I'm going to learn on the job across all of these, and these are just six dimensions, but underneath there are so many other subcategories of things you need to do, that will take time, and that's going to make your life more difficult. So
Mhm.
um, I think it's a good idea to have that kind of a multidimensional experience and learning as much as possible before you jump into something of this nature.
Right. I think you said it very eloquently. In like there's the 6 P, and so it's easy to remember. So I just want to, if you don't mind, repeat it again, just so everybody gets the 6 P and kind of thinks about it that way.
Yes, yes. So one is people side, like people come first, number one priority, the biggest asset of any company. Second thing is productivity. So I tell my team all the time that speed is the only advantage of any company. How fast you move matters a lot. So as a result, productivity is part of that. And underneath, again, right, it's not just like I'm measuring, using Dora metrics or whatever. There are so many details across that. I have a LinkedIn article actually I have written about that, why
Mhm.
productivity is also multidimensional.
Mhm.
Third one is culture, but I am finding a word that starts with P, so I call it passion. It also, if you're not enthusiastic and passionate about what you are doing and all that, it affects the culture actually. So that's why I think it's a good word for that. So the fourth one is platform, right? Platform. My definition of platform is it helps you to move faster, and it helps you to do things easier. Not only actually for you, but also third parties. So otherwise, it's not a good platform. Doesn't matter. It's not about the code quality, how the code looks like, or whatever. It's just, does it make you move faster,
Mhm.
right? And that's the platform side. Fifth one is the products, definitely the products that you are building or features that you are building on top of the platform. And last one is the everything that's associated with process, right? How do you do monitoring? How do you do you know incident management? How do you do alerting? All the things around that one. So these are the six P's
Yeah.
that I try to use, and it's very easy to explain, and it's also very easy to if you say what you have done as a CTO, then starting with these titles is a good idea. I recently heard somebody added performance. They had four P's, but they were including performance as one of those. So
Mhm.
I think everybody has their own definition of these, but I thought these are generic enough to cover most of the things that at least I'm doing.
Right. And they also cover the scope and the breadth of the work that a
Yeah,
CTO would need to do. And so it's really helpful for somebody who might be thinking about the CTO role or is, just stepping into it, and help them frame how they should be thinking about their work
yeah,
with the company. And one of the things I wanted to touch upon is we talk about this breadth, and there is so much beyond the technical aspects of
yeah,
being a CTO. However, a lot of times, especially with an engineer mindset, you kind of do, gravitate towards the technical bits, I'm sure. So how, like,
Mhm.
what level of technical depth do you maintain, or what is really, really required for a CTO to maintain?
Um, I think CTO, in my opinion, is a position that you have to deserve. Um, so which means you have to go through training and failing and learning and delivering and all that. Then I think you come to a position like that. Probably it's applicable to many other C positions. So as a result, basically that learning has to come with you. And I think the technical depth that you should have is you should definitely have a very strong idea about where the future is, right? What's going on in industry, the developments, because it's going to affect your overall company strategy as you're contributing to it, as well as your technical strategy. Um, but also you have to be, I think, in my opinion, is a very good architect. Um, you have to know the cloud. You have to know front end technologies, back end technologies, data science, right? Assuming these are going to be in your teams. Operation side of it, right? So I mean, that technical depth across all of these, definitely you learn by doing. For many of these, there's no textbook that you can just go read and learn. And as I said, if you are in a company that's a fast growing company, um, learning many things on the job is going to be not good for you and not good for the company. So you have to have these kinds of backgrounds before coming to a role like that. Yes, there could be changes with respect to the company and industry. So there will be definitely some new things. But yeah, so basically that depth has to be there in any discussion. You should be able to see issues very fast, because you're gonna, just like you said, you're gonna make lots of trade-offs, lots of decision making. Almost every day you are dealing with all of these. So to be able to do all of these, have such quick decision with actually limited amount of data, it's going to rely on what pattern matching and things like that. So that depth is required to do a good job. So and as I said, it's across the board. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's really helpful. And it goes to show like you still have to be technical enough, but you have to put on a different perspective and think about it a little bit more broadly.
yeah,
And I'm sure that as a CTO, you talked about people, and it's not just your team, your people, or just the company, in your organization, but you also at your level have colleagues that are C-level executives. You
yeah,
are probably talking to the board, or maybe external companies or stakeholders.
absolutely.
And again, as a CTO, that might be a skill that you learn over the years prior to getting into the role. So how do you think
Yeah.
of like these broader skills beyond the technical that are more in the leadership category, that are important as a CTO, and how
Yeah.
can one develop them?
Yeah, very, very good points. I mean, I think before coming to CTO role, that's going to be helpful across all of these is you have to know how to communicate. It's a good idea to know how to write well, because I believe writing is thinking. It's very, very important to have that skill. So basically, you have to make your pitch or your communication. You have to influence teams and make them enthusiastic. You can do this at any level before even coming to the CTO level. But like you said, when you're at the C level, then stakes are higher. So you're going to go to a customer meeting. Customers sometimes scream at your face, right? So how do you deal with that? Sometimes there will be tension within the company, especially if the companies are having growth challenges or other challenges. How do you deal with that? How do you keep your cool, right? So it's very important to have that one team mentality. So in the end, all of these stakeholders within the company, you are parts of the same engine, right? Engine is not going to work if the CTO side is only good, but product side is not there, or sales side is not there. So, and you have to realize that, and you have to have also this kind of partnership with the other team members, and hopefully they're going to follow the same kind of mentality and be a partner to you. But then through the action, through what you're saying, it's going to come out. So many of these skills should be learned, as I said, before you come to that level. But of course, like let's say you won't have a chance to know how to interact with big stake customers or board members or whatever before becoming CTO. That's okay. So you can also learn that. But even when you go over there, right? In the end, they are human beings. So there are some rules associated with each one of these, what to say, what not to say.
Mhm.
Also, being a really good observer of what's going on around you. Some, at sea level, sometimes you might get a mentor that can actually help you to navigate, some of these, including some of the board members sometimes might act like that, or an external one, right? So that there will, as I said, there will definitely be some learning on the job, but many of the fundamentals, I think, should be coming before that.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that is such an important part, especially as you grow in any role. The higher you go, the broader your scope becomes, and then you're not necessarily always just dealing with your like specific domain area. There is
Yeah.
so much more that you are working with. And I feel like an executive really needs to be very well rounded in that sense, and have all of the different skills, uh, and have a well balanced skill set.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And it
Um,
basically at that level, right? Let's say you go to, I don't know, exec offsite, right? Let's say you're discussing the company's future, right?
mhm,
You cannot just say, I mean, most of the time those discussions won't come to, let's say, to technical details. And if you are not well rounded, like you said, right, it's going to be very difficult to contribute to that overall vision and strategy. And also, in the end, you are a problem solver. You are part of that team. You have big stakes with the company. You are a leader that the company relies on, and your team and others, right? To be able to contribute to all of these, you have to be basically part of that team, part of that activity. It has to come. So that well-roundedness will come as a result of that.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, since you mentioned offsite, something just popped in my mind is also at higher levels, you have a lot more ambiguity and
Yeah.
uncertainty that you're dealing with as well. So, how do you navigate that as a leader?
Um, I mean, I think it comes down to some of the things that we just already talked about, right? Decision making with uncertainty, without too much, data that's in front of you. How do you make, iterative improvements? This Amazon thing that people say, one-way door versus two-way doors, right? So there are like different ways of problem solving or thinking or decision making. So you have to know those skills, right? How do you do, from a target backward kind of reasoning, or forward, how do you realize that, at what point you have to say, maybe let's just slow down over here because we need to check X and Y and Z, or there's too much uncertainty or risk over there and we got to take a little bit more time, whatever, right? And it's impossible to make all of these perfect or correct,
Mhm,
but you have to know, at least to a large extent, right? um, where you are, and as a leader you are expected to know most of your decisions should be correct, right? Otherwise you're going to be in trouble and company's going to be in trouble. So
mhm,
through that experience and the learning and your leadership and your skills, it has to be there, because you know I am good technically, but at the level of that company decision, if I make lots of mistakes, then you don't deserve what you are doing.
mhm,
And also, just like you mentioned, right, through the stakeholders, through the other team members, right, and with an open discussion, everybody feels that it's a place where you can actually be very open about almost every aspect of what's going on with the company. That also helps, because that triggers, just like you said, right, something popped to your mind. In those discussions, sometimes one opinion or point made, triggers something else, right? So it's just a iterative process by itself. And you also have to realize, right, what are the good things that what are the things that are more certain versus the other, what other areas that need maybe extra, maybe you have to do a POC for something, or you go test something, or maybe in certain cases you may not even have expertise within the entire team and you need to bring some external expert to actually provide, because of their experience, or they have done it before, or things like that. So it's just again, you gotta know, right, all of these are variables or parameters of that decision making or making progress.
yeah.
And once you have that awareness, I think you make good progress.
Yeah. Great.
Mm.
Thank you so much for that. Um, that brings me to when we talk about decisions. there's a lot of things that happened with the whole generative AI coming in towards the end of 2022, and companies really had to make quick decisions in order to figure out how to incorporate that. So one question I have is, uh, as a leader, how do you think of, like, what was your reaction, for someone who has been there, who has been in the AI space prior to it becoming, I guess, popular?
Yeah.
And how did you work through like a strategy change or shift because of the generative AI coming in?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky because in 90s, even during my master's, I was doing neural networks and, part of data science optimization. So that was and also even, what Google was calling auto ML. So in 90s, I even have a paper on how do you create the optimal neural network architectures based on the problem. So that was a good background. So, and after that, throughout different companies, I kept that, interest as well as research work with respect to data science. And in some companies, we had to do data science. You and I worked on real-time advertising. It's lots of data science and machine learning and things like that. So, I mean, that was part of the learning, and we have seen over and over again, and many people are not maybe aware of, is that machine learning as a technology has been in industry at full scale. I mean, entire advertising or search,
Yeah.
e-commerce runs with machine learning, and this has been going on for decades, even before Gen AI came. So it was not, AI or machine learning was not a revelation by itself, saying that, oh, there's this new thing. It was part of the life. Now, generative AI, of course, changed the picture drastically. Um, um, so personally, definitely, I deep dive into that and learn that. And one thing with generative AI, uh, what I feel like is almost like the first time the World Wide Web came, because you can try yourself, n equals one, one person, myself, and you could see the benefit for yourself right away. So it's very easy to see that there is something over there.
Mhm.
I couldn't get this with Bitcoin and other things, but web was like that, mobile was like that, but Gen AI was like that. And literally, like, you can see the benefit to yourself. So it doesn't take much, beyond that to convince yourself on that one. With respect to business side, I mean, in the ZoomInfo case, definitely, right? We are a big data company. We believe we have the most comprehensive and accurate data in the industry. We are a market leader. So machine learning, AI has been part of what we have been doing for many years now. And with Gen AI, we jumped at it immediately. So immediate first applications was about summarization, extraction of structured data from, let's say, call recordings and descriptions of companies and things like that. So last year we released a couple of features and products on that. The biggest thing that what we did was last year what we call Copilot. So it's a Copilot for sales and marketing personas to help them to stay on top of what's going on in the customer space for them, like all the signals and what they should be paying attention to. And it works. It works so well, not only for our own sales and marketing people, but for our customers too. So it's already selling really well. So seeing that benefit right away for the case that we are solving, again, did not require too much to convince ourselves that this is something that we should rely on deep dive. So it is part of now almost everything that we are doing, and there's more things are coming. We are doing we are converting the entire ZoomInfo into a platform. We call it GTM Intelligence Platform,
Mm.
and it has to have data, first party data, third party data, as well as lots of machine learning. Not only generative AI, but predictive AI too. We have to find a combined solution. And I think it's going to change the game, not only in this area but other areas too.
Right.
It's all over the place. We are also definitely have deployed it for our developers, GitHub Copilot and things like that. There are lots of internal tools we have created using Gen AI. All the applications that internally that are actually automating many tasks that we have and saving so much time and improving productivity.
Yeah. So that addresses very much addresses one of the P's, right? Uh,
Yeah,
it definitely, I think, makes you so much more productive and things can get done faster.
yeah,
At the same time, I'm sure, like when you're deploying AI in a space where you have, uh, enterprise customers,
yeah,
you have to manage that risk in terms of how fast you deploy a new technology versus the impact that it might have to them.
yeah.
How do you manage that risk with your teams?
I mean, if you go to our trust center on the web, we have lots of guidance that we honor. Definitely, security, privacy are at the top of that. Um, so one thing is, um, if you are deploying a third-party solution, it doesn't have to be Gen AI. It applies to many other areas, right? What kind of data you are sharing, either customer data or your own data. So all of these are very heavily monitored, and there are guidance around that and processes. So it's very difficult to bypass any of these. And Gen AI is the same. I have a recent archive paper on how we deployed GitHub Copilot, and you can over there see that even for that, right, we asked the developers to go through all that AI guidelines and privacy guidelines just to make sure, right, they're not making those mistakes. So part is the guideline side, part is how do you ensure this automatically using different tools and all that. So we have deployed security solutions for any Gen AI technology that we have. Actually scans, looks at the data, what gets shared, what doesn't get shared. We want to make sure that any of the data is not going to be used for any third party, let's say LLM vendors, right, for their training. So that is ensured by agreement as well as by our monitoring, right? So you have to be careful about that because that uneasiness is there, like you said,
Yeah.
and that applies the same thing. Even if you remember, like even decades ago, with respect to predictive AI, same thing, right? Are you using my data to train something to help my competition? So it is not something new. So it's just that with Gen AI, you just have to be more careful because the models are far, far smarter. And
Yeah.
yeah, so we are on top of all of these.
And there's probably so much more coming in. Like there's many new trends, and now we're talking about AI agents with, and then even obviously DeepSeek and things like that. So I feel
Yeah,
like there is the pace of change in the technological world
it's
has
unbelievable
just,
how fast
yeah,
it's moving.
right. What technological trends are you most excited about as you look into the future, and how do you see that shaping, say, your work or your industry?
I think definitely AI. It's just as I said, how well it works is mind-boggling, right? It's still through different studies and all that has been people have shown that probably there will be some more changes to the architecture. This may not solve all the problems of intelligence or things like that, but it doesn't have to. At this point, with respect to what Gen AI is providing, it's already solving lots of problems, and I will definitely see more and more applications being written on that. Whether you call them agents or not, lots of automation will be coming out of those. So even if it stays at the same state, lots of things will be done with the current technology. I think many applications might get rewritten from scratch using Gen AI. Definitely some developments, not only security, privacy, but to ensure that robustness is there, so that there's some consistency in the quality of the answers we are getting. Right, too much randomness will make it a little bit difficult. So I think, in a way, like perfecting the current technology definitely is one thing that's gonna be going on. But I think AI and all the things that we are talking about, that is probably one of the biggest revolutions that we are seeing, and it's super exciting for me personally as well as for the team and the companies that I work at.
Yeah, there's so much. Every day I'm trying out a different tool as well, for myself, and I can tell you that just operating more as a solo individual person, I mean, there's so much more. I think I can do like more stuff, and
Yeah,
I mean, it's a little hard to say, but it's going to impact a lot of people's jobs as well, because you can
yeah,
see some of the things can just be done, and so you can obviously the role for people can evolve and they can go on to do something bigger and better, but at the same time there's so much more that can just be done. And you may not need to hire somebody for XYZ purpose if it can be done by AI. So it's really not only changing the technology, but also changing us from a society perspective, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's why it's a revolution. So it's going to change lots of things we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch upon, as a CTO, we talked about there is so much that you have to do. And at the same time, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure and stress.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Um, I mean, one is your own ways of managing stress, whether you're a CTO or not, right? So there are some things that you can do. I don't know, definitely a good family environment, right? So having some fun, have a little bit lightheaded approach. Just don't take things too seriously in regular life. There are a lot of political things or whatever. Lots of bad things are also happening in the world. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt and just a balance from that aspect, definitely. And from the CTO side, I think one is just realize that lots of people rely on you. They trust you. Their careers depend on you. Same thing with respect to companies. So I think that with that responsibility, I'm not saying this to add more stress, but realizing that you can do it and people rely on you to actually deliver on that is something that you should always keep in the back of your mind. That I cannot not do anything. I cannot just like
Mm.
get frozen and have a problem in decision making or moving fast and all that. So same thing with you know if you take your kid to the street, right? So your kid, it's your responsibility to make sure that your kid is protected from the traffic issues and all that. So that when you're a CTO or a parent or whatever, it's a similar feeling. That's one aspect. And second thing is, I think um, it's something that I have always just stayed with me, is like being curious and learning and seeing everything like with a fresh eye. Sometimes first principles approach to trying to solve problems, right? Just it just extracts fun from whatever you are doing. If you just have an approach to things as like same old, yet another, like, oh, I gotta do yet another boring thing, then it also adds up, even though these are small things. So what I try to do is if even if you look at, let's say, hiring process, right? There are lots of interesting things you can do. There's actually research, on that, right? It's how do you select the best people? How do you, um, um, get the good assessment? What does interviewing mean? Why you are asking certain questions, right? So all of these actually creates more writing waves or whatever in your brain, and I think it also keeps you happier, in my opinion. So having that curious mindset and also having fun while doing things and having good network, um, and seeing yourself as a student, through your team members and learning from them, and having a really good environment of sometimes go have fun. And it just requires all of these. There's no single answer, but all of these add up, I think, across the board, and hopefully it's going to manage your stress. But stress is part of the job, right, in your real life as well as at work. You cannot avoid that. You just have to learn how to manage it as much as possible.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's such great advice that I feel will be helpful to so many people, like not just somebody who's in a leadership role, but anybody. I think the staying curious part really resonates, because that is sometimes it gets lost in us wanting to be right or wanting to know everything, or
Yeah.
appearing as if we are the expert and on top of our game. And so sometimes going in with the notion of like, hey, I don't know everything, and like you said, I'm still a student, I'm learning. I think that's such
Exactly.
valuable
Yeah.
advice, so thank
Yeah.
you for sharing
Yeah.
that.
Definitely.
um, as we come to a close, any last words of wisdom or advice that you might want to give aspiring those aspiring to follow in your footsteps?
I think staying curious would be my advice. So because that's a key to get you in a way. Basically, it point is you just have to always improve. And how do you keep improving if, just like you said, you have a closed mindset? Um, So I think that curiosity helps a lot. Having this kind of attitude adds up. So you don't, maybe you're not going to end up being a CTO or CPO or CRO or whatever C level, but you can definitely improve in whatever you are doing by actually staying curious, in my opinion. So I think it's one of the key things that you can act on.
Well, thank you so much. I had a wonderful time chatting with you and really understanding sort of how you are operating. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Priyanka. So I admire what you have done so far, and you are being curious, and I see that you are delving into more and more areas, and even running this podcast. So good luck with everything that you are doing, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye. If today's conversation sparked new ideas or challenged your perspective, I'd love to hear from you. I work with tech leaders and founders to tackle complex challenges, whether it's scaling teams, making high stakes decisions, or turning ambitious ideas into reality. If that sounds like something you are navigating, let's connect. Reach out via my website, thepriyankashinde.com, or find me on LinkedIn.